Hello, everyone. I'm Irene, and I'm here with Jason Maselle, director of film Punter, which is competing in the Foscari Short Film Festival in Venice. Jason, in your movie, the main character is a young boy who's living the conflict between his morals and the lover is dead, which is gambling addicted, and the boy risked to being alienated from the society he lives in order to build a relationship with his dad. So you bring out an important social problem, and your short movies has been already showcased in other festival, and you also received a special mention in the Locarno Film Festival. I wanted to ask you. How important is for young directors to have a platform on this kind of festival, and why did you choose to do that with a to show this kind of topics with a short movie?
I think it's vital for young filmmakers to be showing like at these festivals earlier in their career. Like this is the calling card. This is like what gets sort of like careers made. It's like these festivals give a platform to filmmakers who not only can tell a great story in and of itself, but also shows the potential for like great stories in the future. Um, so yeah, like they're so vital. These short form festivals and like the film's been able to travel and also just like connecting with other people, which is really great. Like that's just like like you sort of like go through all this pain and suffering to make the movie, and then you sit in an audience and you hear like an audience like laugh or gasp at the film. It's like wow, this is like kind of all worth it. Um, and what was the second part of your question?
Well, why did you choose a short to do like short movie instead of like long one?
Originally the idea is a feature film idea, and I'm developing the feature film now. So the short film is so incredible because, or like the form of the short film is so incredible because it basically can, like I said, it's a calling card, and it can kind of be like a proof of concept, or it can kind of show like the potential for what a story can become. So that was always the idea with this film was like, oh, I have this feature film idea. Let me make the short film version. Okay, what does the short film version look like? And then you adapt it to the form. And then once you start to see like, oh, this is really resonating with audiences in the short, or this is really resonating with different viewers. Um, then you kind of like have a clearer roadmap of what the feature film needs to be. So yeah, I knew that I wanted to make a feature film version of this, but I also knew that making the short film, it had to be a short film. It had to be contained. It had to be its own thing. If I did like a scene from the feature, I don't think it would have been as successful. So I just thought to myself, like, well, like, if only got 15 minutes to keep people's attention, like, what can I do?
Yeah, like the message is maybe more powerful sometimes with the short movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it is sometimes more powerful, but I also think it's like a different. It's sort of like a like a gut punch compared to like a feature film, which is like a slow burn, not a slow burn, but like you can sort of like develop certain relationships and everything. And you mentioned like the kind of that inherent conflict between this kid and his morals and his relationship with his dad. Like I'm really excited for the feature because I'm like this the short only it shows a very interesting and kind of like snippet of it. I'm interested to like get even deeper into it so that it can even become like even more complicated and even more sort of resonant and even more complex, I guess.
I saw that you lived in Johannesburg, but you also lived and studied filmmaking in New York City. So I guess those are two different kind of realities and different cities. And how you have been influenced from this two kind of different realities? Like how does this influenced your work either in a cinematic approach or storytelling or whatever. What?
I think it's like it's been incredibly important my training and my education in New York City, and I see them as like a lot of the films and filmmakers that really inspired me to make this movie and who I really love, like John Cassavetes, the Safdie brothers, like they're very much New York filmmakers, and like I used a lot of their formal elements and a lot of their style as like influence for this movie. So it's incredibly important, and I always tell people it's not like this is a bit derivative, but like I say that like Johannesburg is the New York of South Africa in the sense that it's like this bustling city that's got this energy to it and this manicness and this craziness. So it was incredibly important. And also, like, I think being trained in New York and making movies here, you start to really see that the films that like really resonate that are set in New York are sort of like also about New York to a certain extent. And New York is a character. So I thought to myself, like, oh well, that's something that like I haven't really noticed in the films that I really love, is that like the sense of place is also telling the story as much as the characters and the dialogue and the production design and the cinematography is telling the story. So that was really important to me, was like trying to use the influence from New York and New York movies and has as having New York as a character, and thinking like, what does Johannesburg as a character look like, and what's my experience of Joburg, and how can I use that character of Johannesburg to sort of like say a larger thing that I want to say, not just about the characters, but about the sense of place that they're in, that the societal stuff that influences them. And like there's no more incredible, interesting and complicated place than Johannesburg. I mean, it's sort of like the eye of the storm, just in terms like socio-politically in South Africa, economically. And it's just filled with like the most incredible people. And I sort of just wanted to do justice to that.
How long did you stay in Johannesburg? Like when did you move?
I was in Johannesburg all my life, and then undergrad I moved to Cape Town, and then I moved to New York for grad school in around 2019. So, like, yeah, it's still like, I mean, different cities and different places have sort of like New York is like kind of like left its mark on me, but Johannesburg is like that's home. And it's like, it's like even shooting the film, there were practical elements that helped with that as well. Where like the car in the movie is my dad's car. The
Mhm.
clothes that the characters are wearing, like that's my dad's clothes, and those are my clothes when I was a kid. There were crew members that stayed at my family home. The streets that we drove on were like the streets that I drove down thousands of times to get to school for like nearly 20 years. So yeah, it's like it's that kind of stuff. It makes it more special, and like like it was important for me to be like, yeah, this is a Joburg movie. This is a movie like set in Johannesburg, and also kind of
Mhm.
about Johannesburg.
So you literally use objects of your own experience.
Yeah,
That's
it saved a bunch of money too.
I have one last question.
Mhm.
So you decided to um, tell the story from the child point of view, but what would happen if you reverse the story and if you have told from the father point of view? Like what new layers would came up?
It's a really interesting question because I've done work before where I've taken like father son stories where I've taken the father's perspective before, and it turned out to be quite successful. But I feel like with something that was so personal to me, and being in Johannesburg and set in South Africa, I kind of like the story was always going to take the kid's perspective. But if it took the dad's perspective, I don't know. Like I'm struggling to decide if it would be like all the more exciting and incredible, or like it would be all the more devastating. Probably like like being in his like that's the thing, is that I want to say, the dad's perspective would maybe be even more tragic, because there's like the audience is still aware of like the of what's going on, of like the lies that the dad is
Mhm.
telling himself and everything. So I don't think the audience would ever be able to shift away from that. I think about like a film that comes to mind is Robert Altman's California Split, where like spoilers for California Split, like sorry, but like the whole point of that, like the ending of that film is a gambler who he can't stop winning, and then he has an existential crisis over it, and he realizes that like it doesn't matter how much he's going to win, he'll never win, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I feel like the dad story would kind of be that, would be like, yeah, there'd be this excitement about like hitting the bets and everything, but I think it would ultimately, like, the character would still be left in the same place that they started, which is just like chasing this dragon, or chasing the like nothing will ever be enough. So yeah, I I think the dad's perspective would be a lot more depressing.
Maybe you will do like a future movie.
Yeah, no, I think it's God. I hope not. I really hope not. I want my films with. I know that the ending of the short is like not like conventionally optimistic or anything like that, but I don't know. I still want my films to have some semblance of like hope, to a certain extent. But
This
yeah,
makes
you never
sense.
know. Yeah.
This makes sense. Thank you, and I wish you good luck with this short and the your next work.
Thank you so much for the questions.